Hey everybody, it's your hospitality friend Glenn, and welcome to the newest episode of Icons and Experts, brought to you twice a month in partnership with my friends over at the Extended Stay Lodging Association. Be sure to check them out at ESLA.org. That's ESLA.org. So today, we're going to be unlocking the secrets of enhanced guest experiences through cutting-edge technology in extended stay hotels. And we're going to be breaking down how connectivity innovations and single-source solutions are reshaping the hospitality industry. My co-host today is the founder of ESLA, Doug Artusio, joined by John Troutwine of BBH Broadband Hospitality. So today we're going to be talking about guest connectivity needs, single source providers, what are they, why they're important, how emerging brands such as Echo Suites by Wyndham is optimizing their infrastructure through guest-centric designs, of course, the evolution of bandwidth, where we've been, where it's going, and real-life examples to help you better understand how it all fits into perspective, right? Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Broadband Hospitality. They're your comprehensive hospitality technology solutions partner, offering all-in-one solutions for extended stay hotels and beyond. They provide a unified platform for myriad tech services designed to enhance performance while reducing costs. Make sure you check them out at broadbandhospitality.com. That's broadbandhospitality.com. Also, wouldn't be another show unless it's brought to you by our friends over at Delisart Hospitality. Check them out at delisart.com because they are the leader in third-party management services for extended stay business with decades of experience of extended stay ownership and management. And also, guess what? They're also the only company to offer three key services, whether you want them all together or separately: full management, remote sales support, and remote revenue management services. Check them out at delisart.com, delisart.com for more information. And now, enjoy the show. Doug, so great to see you back with us today. I love having you co-host these shows because there's somebody that has a management company that's been focusing on this sector for, sorry to say, decades. You really know where it's at. And you've seen the evolution of technology. And one of the places in evolution I know you've seen a lot of is access to the internet, from hardwired to Wi-Fi. That's where it's all at right now. And in fact, Doug, my whole career is based on this little technology.
Absolutely, Glenn. And, you know, because technology changes so much, every time I listen to more information, I learn something. I take it away and say,
Yeah.
today's function, in fact, I will learn from it. I'm looking forward very much to understanding more about BBH and broadband hospitality.
Yeah, well, let's find a little bit out. Let's find out a little bit more about how you out there can make sure you're satisfying your guest needs today and preparing yourself for tomorrow. We got John Troutwine with us, the SVP Sales and Marketing with BBH Broadband Hospitality. John, you've been in this business now over 25 years here in the industry. You too have gone on that journey. I remember back in the day, maybe they'd put in the extra phone line so that way I could stay on AOL as much as I want at that robust 4,800 baud or whatever it was, right, John?
It's interesting. The owner and CEO of our company started his career a little over 30 years ago, putting public telephones in the lobbies of hotels before even there was internet connectivity in the property. So it's been a journey. It has been a journey.
It sure has. So, John, I guess a natural place to start is extended stay hotels are a little bit different than transient hotels, and the needs of the consumer may be different. Where do you see us today and what the needs are from the average consumer in this setting versus the typical transient hotel?
It's a great question, and we think about it every day at BBH as we serve the clientele. But in reality, we are serving the guests and the residents in the properties. And the interesting thing about considering the guests and residents at extended stay properties is the nature of the long-term stay. And from the technology standpoint, you mentioned it at the beginning here, internet connectivity, absolutely number one consideration. And then we have to think about the unique needs of the guests and residents
Mhm.
from the in-room entertainment side of things. And then thirdly, we think about the differentiation of needs on the security side. The particular needs of providing safety for the guests and residents and staff at the properties where people essentially live there. And those are the things that we think about every day as we qualify those situations and consider the next pieces of technology that we should be presenting to those extended stay properties.
Yeah, Doug?
Well, Glenn, it's interesting because what we're also talking about is a single source provider.
Right.
Okay. And, they are becoming more and more of these out there. Some have experience, some don't. Obviously, BBH has a tremendous amount of experience. As an operator, it's a real hassle for me to track 4 or 5 different companies, contracts, times, having the opportunity to vet new companies. And so what John is saying is so true. And yet, from an operations standpoint, there's a lot and it's ever changing. So, one of my questions to John would be around understanding how a single source provider really can make a difference for developers.
Well, it's another good question. I think that when we think of technology in properties, it starts with the concept when a property is being built of the network itself. We can't get around the fact that there's a wired network inside, creating ports available for stuff inside properties. And the nice thing that when we work with developers and general contractors, people want to have an efficient construction process. They want things to be completed in the cadence of when drywall comes in, when FF&E is ready to go, and technology installation is part of that. And the idea of the same company helping to design the wired network, the fiber backbone, the Ethernet running to rooms and public spaces is the same company that comes in and installs the endpoints. That creates a scenario where there could be no finger pointing of coordination. And that tightly controlled coordination creates efficiencies on costs and other things that come into play.
Sure.
And at the other end of the scale, on the other end of the scale, when a consumer is in a room as a guest or a resident, and they have a gaming system that isn't normally set up because they're staying there for the next 6 months. It's not normally set up in a transient hotel. The idea that the entity that installed and now supports that system, understands that situation, and can get that device on the network appropriately so they can play their games. That's an important piece of that sort of one stop shop vendor part of this.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Let's just break it down a little bit for folks that are maybe making that first investment. What is an endpoint and why is that relevant?
So yeah, when we talk about an endpoint, if you think about the devices that are in a property, you have things like your Wi-Fi network, your Wi-Fi access points, whether they're in the hallways or more in today's world inside rooms. That's an endpoint. You have a television. That's now an endpoint. You have the telephone that's in the room and in the common areas. That's an endpoint. Your CCTV security cameras are endpoints. All of these devices now sit on network today, along with the things you don't see as a consumer in the back of house, the credit card reader, the other devices on the back end. So those are all endpoints.
I'm just relieved that we're not talking about my demise. So that's very cool. Sir, no, over there. All right. So, um, what do you have to think about? What does the developer have to think about what they will actually need to be able to supply a hotel? And Doug, maybe you could throw out an average room count or something, you know?
Well, an average room count, Glenn,
Yeah, for an extended stay hotel, right?
if we were about 120 rooms, okay, would be a typical bill for extended stay. And again, having that coordination would be key. It takes a tremendous amount of headache out of the whole development process. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, John, for 120 rooms, how many things are we talking about? What kind of process is this like? Because, here at the Houseman hotel, we're simple. We only got a few rooms, so we just got the one thing down in the in the living room area. But I don't have 120 rooms, and I certainly don't have a lobby, and I certainly don't have people coming in and out of here with a lot of particular needs. So when you're building an extended stay hotel, what do you think about when it makes making sure that all of your systems and your guests are taken care of?
Well, let's use a real life example. One of the emerging extended stay brands is the new Echo Suites brand by Wyndham. 124 room model. And so one of the things that the Wyndham corporate IT folks have done is they've created a very efficient design. So in the past, if you think about a typical hotel room, there would have been a coaxial cable coming to the television. There would have been a wired internet port. There would have been a telephone cable. So there's multiple cables coming into the room. In the new design, there's only a single Cat6 cable going to the room. It goes behind the television, and there's an access point, an Aruba access point in this case, on the back, on the wall behind the television. Coming out of that is a cable going into the TV. So if you talk about number of points in a room, and there's a cable coming out of that same access point to the phone. So there's 3 devices inside each room times 124. So you have those. And then you have 30 or so security cameras. You've got 10 or so common area phones. And then you have maybe 40 ports for back of house devices. So somewhere in the range of 400 devices are on the network at a property like that.
That is super extensive. If you want to learn more about Echo Suites, please check our database of shows on October 25th. We spoke to Ian McClure, CEO of Gulf Coast Hotel Management, that's developing 30 of these properties. I can't even imagine how many wires he's going to need over there. What's those 30 Genos are?
It's interesting that you bring up Ian, because Ian, in the case of the Echo Suites and Wyndham, Ian has been very involved in helping to evolve the design, starting with his first one that's opened in Plano.
What do you mean by evolve the design?
Well, you think about some things that we all learn every single day. The idea of a extended stay property with many times a single employee working the front desk, who sometimes lives at that property.
Right.
So at late night, you have a vestibule. Somebody wants to check in for the first time at 2 o'clock in the morning when they show up because their flight was late. How do you get in touch with the person who needs to come out and check you in because they were asleep? So the idea of making sure that there's a proper way to have a phone in the vestibule, that when you pick up that phone, it automatically dials through. It finds the person with a path through. If they're not at the desk, it rolls right through to the phone that they have, that they carry around. Those types of things Ian has caught and saying, we've got to have the easy way. They don't need to hit the button. They can't dial anything when they're standing in the vestibule. They should just pick up the phone, and like an intercom, it rings right through. So that's just one idea. That's a simple one that he's come to the assistance of us all with.
Yeah. Doug?
Yeah, let me ask one more question, John. Obviously, there are a lot of brands out there with extended stay products, and each of the brands have a different requirement for speed, up and down speed, maybe 100, 200, whatever that would be. As a developer, how do we navigate all the differences? Or are there companies like yours which understand the brands, are approved by the brands, and therefore, again, it makes it a lot easier on the developer?
Another good question, and I'll use the word evolving again, because obviously we have always bandwidth hungry consumers and devices, and that is increasing every single day. It used to be that the quote free package that was available for internet access was 3 meg down. For the consumer side, we had this goal in mind that you would purchase high speed. It would be 6.
Yeah.
Uh, But if you think it through, if you're in a room and you want to cast the latest episode of Lioness, then you need for high definition streaming.
Right.
So the idea of increasing in today's environment, the typical extended stay property is going to at least a 300 to 500 meg circuit, sometimes a gig, and then passing through to the guests somewhere in the range of 10 to 20 megs down. So we have to continually adjust those. And the nice thing is that the carriers, the big ones, AT&T, Lumen, and others, they allow for client properties mid-contract to move up if they want to bump up to the next highest speed of overarching internet connectivity, so that we can then bump it up inside the properties. It's important, right? We talk about all kinds of new technology in the world today, and at the end of the day, it's bandwidth, bandwidth, bandwidth.
John, I see your importance and raise you to critical. It's as important as plumbing and electricity. It is a utility. And if people can't do what they need to do with this particular utility, you're going to lose that customer, particularly if they're going to be there for a long period of time. I mean, Doug, can you imagine not being able to live the way you want to live via the internet when you're somewhere for 3, 6 months at a time?
So, and with the extended stay customer being younger and younger every year, the demands for technology, the demands for online accessibility, to stream, to download, to game is just increasing. And again, it just multiplies on the extended stay version because they're really at home. So, absolutely critical. Uh, a big headache for the developer unless we're partnered properly. So, I advise everyone that's developing or renovating towards an extended stay to check with their brands, find the operators, find the companies who can do this all for you. The headaches, the knowledge really will be taken away if you find the right providers. And as uh, you know, so BBH example of one that can do this.
Yeah, John, I feel like we've gone from broadband to needing broader band. Are we going to need broadest band at some point in the future, or are we hitting the max of what we're going to need going forward?
Well, I don't think there's going to ever be an end to the need to increase bandwidth. I mean, we've seen the hockey stick happen over the last 10 years. The pandemic created an environment where people that were in extended stay properties that lived there, had that isolation event. Bandwidth was very important, and it continues to increase. Do I think it'll ever end? No, I don't. Um, I think that there's going to be devices and sensors and other types of technology that are going to be introduced to create an even better environment for the residents and guests, and all of that will require higher speed.
In addition, I do see a day where 4K in hotels for download is more prominent, for example. So, and there is 8K products out there for watching videos. So, as hotels continue to want to keep up with the lifestyle of their customers, my suspicion is that you're right, John, that the needs for broadband is going to be more critical than ever going forward. Big difference than my day of just hoping to sign on to AOL and here you've got mail and get two emails. John, any final words before we let you go? And of course, tell us how we could learn more about BBH.
Yeah, I think that what I would say to everybody in the space is that there's always this opportunity for improvement and consideration of the next, what's coming next. How do we pay as operators of these properties for the next thing that's coming along? And I think there are some exciting things that we all can look at. There are things like motion detection on in-room thermostat that allow on a very simple basis to use machine learning and AI to determine when residents and guests are typically in their room.
They may have some field
Stuff. So yeah.
So if they're hanging from the ceiling, we're in trouble. But the idea of creating those types of energy savings, it's good for the environment, it's good for the property. It allows for that type of savings to then be put towards the kinds of things that we're talking about to increase
Right.
the satisfaction level of the guests. So I say that. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. People can reach out to us with any types of questions at our email address, connect@bbhnow.com. Those come through straight to the upper management of the company, and we love to answer those types of inquiries.
Beautiful. John, thanks so much. But before you go, Doug, I have one more question for you here because it didn't even occur to me. Like, I think most of us coming in, particularly as new developers, really only think of it as the customer's usage of the internet. They're not really thinking about all that extra bandwidth that they're going to need to power those systems in the hotel that could save them money. So I think John's point right there is really interesting. And I'd love for you to comment on that as well.
The controllables are eating us up as owners. They really are over the years, whether it's third party, reservations or just costs in general. Labor is running high. So every opportunity that we can find, a service that enhances a guest stay, which is critical, and saves dollars along the same time, improves efficiency, becomes a no-brainer. But we need to know these things. And this is why these podcasts are so important, because we're learning new things about aspects, because developing is not easy. It is not going to get easier. So this becomes critical in order to be successful long-term as an owner.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, guys, thank you so much. What a great discussion that was. And I want to thank you all for joining us here today and continue to please tune into all of our shows. Remember, you can catch the one with Ian McClure. Find that at the ESLA website, esla.org, and of course at novacancynews.com. Also want to thank Delasart for being such a great sponsor of this program. Remember, I've got multiple ways to help you be more successful. Learn about them at delasart.com. Meanwhile, I'm Glenn Haussman. Thanks for watching. We'll see you right back here next time on ESLA's Experts and Icons.